Continuing with the second part of my series on how to buy land for your off-grid homestead for less down than the cost of that high-end robotic kitty litter scooper that you've had in your Amazon cart for the last 6 months, trying to figure out how to justify spending that much money for that kind of convenience.
Guaranteed this would kill a cat.
This is part 2, so let's talk about it. So this is the part in the sequence where you're going to figure out how you're going to finance the purchasing of the land. And there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about on this. I've done videos ad nauseum about owner financing. That is one way to go about it. I've also pointed out a bunch of different platforms that you can use to find land that might work for you that already have pre-set up terms for those plots of land for you, such as Billy Land, Land Limited. One that a friend of mine swears by is called Struck Land. And these are great ways to go. But you can also go a more conventional route and do a bank loan if you got the credit and the down payment for that. You can work with a realtor who might be able to negotiate owner financed terms, which can be all papered up in a legal fashion and getting title insurance and having the transaction recorded with the county just in case something were to ever happen to the owner, and doing all the steps that you need to make sure that, well, you don't get screwed. Sometimes if a property is being used for a nefarious purpose, that property might be auctioned off through the sheriff's department in a civil forfeiture situation. Now, I have kind of moral and ethical issues with this because, under most circumstances, in my opinion, civil forfeiture is a blatant violation of your constitutional rights. But that is a route. There's also tax auctions. If a property owner stops paying the taxes on a particular piece of property, you can actually have it auctioned off. A lot of states have different rules for that sort of a thing. And sometimes you can find yourself in a situation where a tax auction gives the person who originally owned the property a period of time that they can come back and pay for that property with a premium on top. Sometimes it's 25%, sometimes it's 100%. But as long as in that period of time they pay you back, you have to turn that property back over to them, with that premium. So just make sure that you understand the laws in the state that you're looking at. A quick Google search will give you all of that information if you want. We actually were able to get the property right next to us through a tax auction, adding to the size of our property. We started off with about 3 acres and now we have about 7. So that's one of the ways actually that beats the price inflation that these properties have encountered over the last 12 years. We actually got that property for half the price that we paid for this one, even though it was 12 years later. So that's another way, another option that you can go. If you want to know about that story of why I felt okay doing that, it's a great story. I'll link it up here so you can, or maybe up here, so that you can check that video out. I'm not going to say that it's one of my more special effects driven videos, but there are some explosions and also laser blasters in that video. You might want to check it out. Ultimately, what it's going to come down to is what your situation is. If you go owner financed, you're probably going to pay a little more for the property and you're probably going to pay a higher interest rate. But you don't have to go through banks or the qualifications or have a huge down payment. And if you go through one of the platforms like Billy Land that I've talked to you about in the past, they usually have things like no prepayment penalties. And in the case of Billy Land, they actually give you I think it's a 5% discount on your final payment. So if you choose a very low payment, you're going to pay a higher interest rate. But if you choose that lower payment just so that you can always make sure you can make that payment, when you have extra funds, you can throw it towards that, really dropping the effective interest rate over a period of time. We originally signed up for a 20-year term, but we paid it off in 12, saving us significant amounts of money in interest. If you have some money saved up, check into the tax auction way to go. Or, you can probably get a conventional loan through a bank if you have enough money saved up for a bigger down payment. I believe the current average is between 30 and 40% for a bank loan. So it's pretty significant, and it's kind of, in my opinion, a high barrier to entry. So that's why I always advocate for owner finance, because I'm not a big fan of banks. And if you saw my video on how we turned negative $27 into our property, you'll know just how I feel about them. So once you've decided how you're going to finance this whole thing, I really recommend that you take a beat and you do some research on some things. If you're going the owner financed platform route, I know of a couple of them that are very legitimate and have been in business for a long time. The ones that I've mentioned in all the other videos that I've done a lot of research on or use them as a client. But on any of the other ones, I really recommend digging into them as a company, making sure that they're not like caught up in a ton of different scams that they've tried to pull. There should be some red flags, that you should, or if there are red flags, you really want to take those into consideration before sending even $1 to these folks. So you want to make sure that you've done that. Make sure that you've done the research on the laws for the tax auctions. Also, the platforms that these tax auctions use. For example, the one that we bought this property next to us on, it was called bid4assets.com. I know a lot of counties do actually use that particular website. And I would just go in and make sure that they don't charge ridiculous additional fees. Like we had to pay an additional 10% on top of whatever we bought. And I thought that was really high until I started looking into it more. And some of these sites charge 50%. So you want to make sure that is something that you go into with your eyes wide open. Research the properties that you're interested in themselves. It's probably worth the $25 or so to do a title search on the property. You can go to the website of the county that property is in and find out all kinds of other stuff about it. And then start researching it from the viewpoint of your lifestyle. What I mean by that is doing all the steps to make sure that it's not a 2.5 hour drive to the nearest gas station, make sure that there are the resources that you need. Maybe it's a lumber yard, or it's a pet store, or perhaps you need to have your eyebrows done on a monthly basis, like I probably should. I mean, look at these bad boys. That's intense. So whatever it is that you consider to be an essential service, you just want to make sure that it's within a reasonable trek to get to, so you're not using up all of your resources paying for gas just to get to town and back. This is the stage where you do all of your research on the different properties that you're looking at, as well as the platforms that you're buying them on. And if you do that, you're going to actually go into the transaction without that feeling of like, oh, there might be some buyer's remorse on this. And, that's just science. So now you've figured out your purpose for wanting to put yourself through this experiment in perseverance. You've figured out your budget. You've sorted out all the different things that you want to do with the land. You found the platform that you're going to buy the land on and decided how you're going to finance it. You've researched the platforms. You've researched the property. You've done all of your due diligence. And that's what they're talking about when people say do your due diligence, is all of that stuff before. I've even added some things. It's like due diligence. I should think of a different name for that. So you've done all of those things. You've narrowed down to maybe 1 or 2 properties that you're going to go into your final negotiations on. And now you've narrowed it down to that one property that you can turn into exactly what you want it to be. Now, after doing all of that stuff, is the time to sign on the dotted line. And you can do that confidently because you've done all the research and you've done all the due diligence, and you've even done the due diligence. That's what you do in this step. You actually acquire the property that you're going to go for. Now, you think that's the end of this, but it's not. You see, this is the step where you actually set a date of when you're going to leave all of this behind and start heading out there. Now, that could look different from person to person. If you're like me, you pack everything up and you go. I'm a little impulsive, and I'm also probably overconfident that I'm going to be able to work out the problems that I encounter from doing such a, cavalier route towards getting what I want. Maybe you're the type of person that wants to have the whole property paid off before you move out to it. Or perhaps you're the type of person that wants to have it paid off and the house built and a shop built and all of the other things that you could possibly need. Maybe you want to have the whole thing fenced in so you can have animals immediately. Whatever way you want to go about it, this one point, to me, seems to be where things go sideways for people. And in a lot of cases, people will end up buying a property and then they never go out to it because they haven't decided that this is when my old life ends, and that day specifically is when my new life and new adventure begins. And so I really recommend that you do this step and you stick to it. Maybe things change over that period of time. That's okay. Set a new date, but always have a target in mind for when you want to actually arrive on your property and start living the life that you're trying to sort out how to live in the first place. Now, if you're interested, I actually go into all of these steps way more in depth and actually wrote it out as a workbook that takes you step by step through all of these different things. I've linked it down in the description below, and you can actually download it for whatever you want to pay, even if what you want to pay is nothing. That gives people the opportunity to contribute if they want to, but if they're in a situation that this information can help them get out of and they don't have the resources to pay for it, well, they can download it too. So I hope that's helped, and I hope it gives you kind of a roadmap on all the different things that you need to get done to be able to actually accomplish this lifestyle. And hey, I hope you had fun on the way. So I'll catch you in the next one.